Welcome to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden. So glad you could join me. How's your season going? Is it still going? Out here in a lot of the West, including the upper Midwest these days, we're still hard at it. And we'll be talking more about that. Got some great hunting reports to share with everybody else who didn't get out last weekend or last week in general. Some of you maybe go during the week if you're really lucky and you got permission from your social secretary, but that's just one of the things we're covering today. You know, last week the 10 questions idea was a real hit, and I sure enjoyed it, and apparently so did everybody else, because we're going to do it again. We got a listener on board who will be asking me 10 questions. I'll probably ask 3 or 4 or 10 of him as well. So stand by, no matter what the questions are. Hopefully one or both of us will learn something. I have no idea. No preparation involved on my part, which is kind of like college, but that's another story. Like I said, I'll also have your hunting reports. I'll kind of recap what I learned over the weekend. I did a poll on our Upland Nation Insights weekly newsletter. I'm going to talk about what you use to toast a good hunt, or maybe even a bad hunt. And our Handle It segment is all about how being nice can pay off in any number of ways. So there's a lesson in there, and I was lucky enough to learn it again on the last hunt, and maybe you could use a little reminder as well. First off, heck of a time. Got invited by one of our own Upland Nation podcast listeners to explore some public access ground, kind of up there and a little to the right. I knew the country very well, but I didn't know these spots very well. And again, if you just look hard enough on some of the maps, you'll find it. On others, you have to do more than look. But don't get me started on how each individual state manages their public access, or we'll be here until tomorrow morning. But anyway, thank you, Felton, for the kind invitation. Had a great session with you. First day, big running dogs. Felton's English setter and my German wire hair kind of put on about the same number of miles, 27 each for the dogs on Saturday. We did about a third of that, and paid off, but not in the ways you might think. Maybe you can relate to this. All the points were 300 or more yards over the ridge. By the time we could huff and puff our way to it, those birds were long gone. But good dog work, at least in terms of finding birds. And on one of those, we actually got lucky. The point, we knew about it. We both carry a GPS collar of one sort or another. Darn, he's moving again. But sure enough, the chuckers came over the rise and right over us. A hard right to left crossing shot for both of us. Each got lucky on that. Put one chucker in the bag for each guy and each dog. And that was pretty nice in and of itself. I might have more to share on that later, because, just admiring the environment and the habitat, the cover and the feed also paid off on that trip with Hungarian partridge. So got some Huns in the bag, first ones of the year. What a nice surprise. Again, thank you, Felton, for your hospitality. Enjoyed the heck out of it. Later on in the podcast, I'll talk about that story a little bit more, in that there's a lesson in how we got access to that spot. But in the meanwhile, how the heck is your season going? Well, Dan Lenson, I don't know if I could mix that bag up anymore. What a great shot. It looks like you got a cottontail, a couple valley quail, a male and a female, and then a rooster. How are you loading for those, by the way? That's quite a mixed bag. Good job. Joey Zilla, or hablas español, Joey Zia. Nice tailgate full of chuckers. Congratulations. A little snow on the ground, but that's par for the course this year. Ted Moen was approved for a hunt test Darn, darn, darn. For all I know, it was that first one for your new Cocker Spaniel. Anyway, sorry you didn't get past the wait list, but there's plenty of those out there, as you well know. Josh Glover. Josh says, some feathers, some fur, and 2 tired pups. Now, he spelled two, T-O-O, and they do look too tired. But they're also 2 tired pups. Yeah, looks like everybody had a good time. And Joe Wright is walking in on a flying, probably a quail. This looks like from here. It's a pretty wide shot. Over a staunch short hair. I mean, how do you top that? Well, Linda Syke can top it. She got a hunt in on New Year's Day. Proud of her dog and his steadiness, and I don't blame her. Good job, Spiro Mafroidas. Last day in Ohio. No birds were harmed in the making of these memories. And that Český Fusek, actually, I think the aficionados call it a Český Fusek. I can't get over it, being from that part of the world. Good-looking dog, Spiro. Yasu, good job. All right, Glenn Blue loves the dog pics, would love to have one, but there's no birds in Missouri. I haven't seen one quail crossing the road in the last 10 years. Well, Glenn, the best thing you can do is probably get the hell out of town for a while here and there and maybe go visit Tony Arneson in Idaho, where it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Canada geese and a beautiful, kind of, I'll call it a darkly colored yellow lab. Congratulations to everybody, and good luck for the rest of the season. Be safe out there. You know how to talk about this stuff. Just go to one of the Facebook pages. On Monday mornings, I ask you for a debrief. Love seeing the pictures. I bet everybody else does too, because it's probably one of the most popular posts on the page that day. Love to share that stuff with everybody else. And the Upland Nation podcast is brought to you by Sage and Breaker Gun Care products, crafted at the highest caliber. It's a new year. They got some new products. They're always giving you free shipping. Used several of Sage and Breaker's products in the barnyard at a new friend's place on Saturday and Sunday. On Sunday, I used them back at the hotel on Saturday night, but they sure come in handy, easy to carry, especially if you have some of the ways to package that stuff, some beautiful heirloom quality cases and rolls and things like that. So check it all out at sageandbreaker.com. Some great videos there. It's all at sageandbreaker.com. And then I did want to make you aware of something that I'm kind of soft opening in response to a just unbelievable demand out there. I do this Upland Nation Index survey, and just out of curiosity this time around, after seeing what's also happening in the broader marketplace, would you buy lightly used brand name, guaranteed, curated hunting and dog products? Yeah, you would. 91% of you said, heck yes. So I've launched UplandNationDeals.com. It's where you can sell the stuff you're not using and buy the stuff you want to use, all at significant discounts. If you got a spouse, ask her what Poshmark is. It's a resale site. We basically broker gear between you and a buyer, or a buyer and you, depending on what you're looking for and what you want to get rid of. Put some cash in your pocket, save some money on really good gear. That's the only kind that'll be there. And right now you can get a kind of a flavor for it. We're in the beta test stage. So go to UplandNationDeals.com and check out all the gear and how it works, and then consider maybe listing some of your stuff there as well. Well, I promised you 10 more questions. So that'll be the cumulative total over 2 weeks will be 20 questions, which is probably going to be 21 or 22 by the end of this podcast. But on the Upland Nation podcast, I've opened the doors to all sorts of things like this, and I'm looking forward to talking with Steve Shurtleff. Steve, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
So you're kind of, I'll say, kind of new to the bird hunting game, and you've got, some things that I'm looking forward to learning more about, including your background, your origin story in this world. Tell me a little bit about how you got where you are.
All right. I got out of the military in 1996, and I figured I was going to go with some buddies and learn how to hunt. And they gave me a shotgun, some shells, and okay, try not to hurt yourself. I was like, I can do that. I went out one time and I thought I shot a pheasant. It turned out to be a robin, and I felt horrible. Two of the old guys in the field started laughing at me and made fun of me, and then I just walked away. Then everybody on this podcast loves their dog to like the moon and back. I just lost mine in June. So one of my buddies, I asked him if he takes his son pheasant hunting. He's like, yeah. I said, well, can I tag along? He's like, absolutely. So it's been a whirlwind adventure every time we go out, and we just have fun. We just say, hey, we're going to go take our gun for a walk, and maybe a bird will pop up and we'll get it.
Well,
that's how this whole deal goes.
I love it, and I guess I'll say welcome back. You aren't the only one who's shot at over here in the West. We call those practice quail, and I won't even joke about how you could possibly confuse a 3-pound bird with a 4-ounce bird, because we all have been there. So enough about that. Tell me how it went on that first time you tagged along, because this is real near and dear to my heart.
So me and my buddy and his son, we meet at like dark 30 down at the local stocked area. We go out there. The first spot we hit was full of people, so he's like, okay, we'll go walk to the other end of the earth, it felt like. But we started walking the fields. About an hour and a half later, his son shoots at a bird, but there was people with a dog coming up the other end. So I was like, hey, don't shoot. So the guy was like, just aim your gun up and the dog will flush the bird out to you. And so that's what happened. And my friend's son popped the bird. And then the following week we went back out again, and then I got my first pheasant.
Tell me all about this one, because this is the kind of stuff I love to write about.
So when we go hunting, we don't use a dog. So there's 3 of us. One gets the right, one gets the middle, one gets the left. So every time somebody hits a pheasant, we just call it, hey, that's so-and-so field. We'll go try that. We'll go try this. So after we went to where his son got his bird the following weekend, the weekend before, I should say, we went and walked through, and the pheasant that I got was actually sitting up in a tree, and we made eye contact, and he was like, uh-oh. So he flew for it, and then I popped him, and he fell, and I was just like, wow, this was the best feeling ever.
What goes through your mind? It's been a long time since I actually shot a first bird, but what went through your mind after you got that thing and you held it and you shared it with everybody?
It was more of like, it was a relief, and it was just kind of like, I really can't explain it, but it was just more like I could do this. And it was like, look what I did, look what I accomplished. It was things like that. And of course I took a picture with it, and my friend ate it.
You didn't get a bite?
No. So what it is like when I go with them, I live by myself. So like he has a wife and a kid. So I'm like, dude, just take it. And everyone that I've got, so I got 2 this year. And I was just like, just take it and feed your family. It's like, cause I can live on pizza bites and
Oh, I love it. All right. So here's the one directive I'm going to give, and you're going to have to relay it to your friend. The next time that happens, he's got to invite you over at least for some appetizers. But But that is, and I don't talk about that enough, but for a certain number of new hunters or non-hunters, the weight of their mind is through their belly. And so let's all make a promise out there. I'm formulating plans, by the way, my wife doesn't know this yet, to resurrect what we started out calling the shot and caught potluck dinner. Yeah, it was going to be for hunters and anglers. And then it turns out friends of ours they were great bakers and they were great mushroom hunters and things like that. And all of a sudden we started just opening the floodgates to anybody who could forage anything as well. And luckily for me, Linda foraged wild yeast while she was baking the best rye bread in the universe. So Linda, you're always invited. Okay, bring Ralph if you have to, but just don't forget the bread. Anyway, that's the kind of stuff that will make a believer out of almost anybody. So good luck, Steve. I hope you get invited to another one. And here we are. So I'm going to guess you're somewhere in the Northeast. Tell us about where you are.
I am in Coventry, Rhode Island. It is currently 20 degrees out. So it's like a heat wave.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So the way it works up here is pheasant season is from October till February 28th. They stock from October to December, and then after that, you can go hit the fields and try to scare one up.
Nice. So you got any plans to get out again before the end of the season?
Oh yeah.
Excellent.
Oh yeah.
Excellent. So I promised you could ask 10 questions, and I'll get to those, and I'll hold some of mine. But give me a minute. I got to reach for a piece of paper because I already have a good one for you. All right. So as I said, all of your questions were in a hermetically sealed mayonnaise jar, and I have not seen them. I haven't been given any prompts or any clues or any previews. Steve Shurtleff, dogless hunter extraordinaire. Let's start with your first question.
When I was watching some of your episodes, New Year's Day, every time somebody shot, it was rooster, rooster. Why did you not shoot the hens?
Good question, and I'm glad to answer that. Thank you. Those of us have been around this a long time. First off, that might sound like a pretty basic question, but it really isn't. And here's some good reasons I'm glad that people do it when I'm in a line with them in a field in South Dakota. First off, it's against the law. Second off, the reason it's against the law is for every rooster, 12 hens can basically be impregnated. So we need a lot of hens and very few roosters to keep the populations up. The number one reason based on those two is if that bird's going away from you, or it's going into the sun, or there's some other things that happen so that all you see is a silhouette, that bird is shaped virtually the same as a rooster bird. So you cannot tell from the coloring quite often. So if somebody else can tell, they want you to know to either shoot it or don't shoot it. Because if you hear rooster, rooster, that's great. But you'll also hear hen, hen, when it is a girl bird getting up. Now, the interesting part, and you may not know this, Steve, almost every other game bird, you cannot tell the difference that easily. So the law in most states most of the time is shoot anything else that's flying except hen ringnecks. That answer it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So and just to put a capper on it, where you're going, if the state's putting those birds out, they're putting out all roosters. I can almost guarantee it.
Well, it's definitely fun seeing them fly.
Oh, yeah. And if you're lucky, and it didn't happen Sunday afternoon when I was climbing the fence, they'll announce themselves. The roosters will often cackle. This one happened to sneak out the back door silently, but my gun was laying against the post and it was unloaded anyhow.
It's always the way it works.
Yeah. Take a leak, guaranteed flush. Pardon the pun. Okay, 1 down, 9 to go.
When you're out in North Dakota, how many people do you prefer to hunt with at one time?
However many are there, and we've had it all sorts of ways. Sometimes we're surprised because other people are coming along with us we hadn't planned on. For safety, though, number one, you want to keep the group relatively small. And what we're talking about here are wild bird hunts in country where you're working pointing dogs. If you're working a big cut cornfield or even a standing cornfield, and it's, a quarter section or even smaller, but if it's bigger, a lot of the commercial operations will put a whole line of guys out there, and they'll walk in that line. I mean, like a dozen, maybe more than a dozen, and they'll all walk ideally in an even line. But I like smaller groups because, again, you can use pointing dogs, you can get more dog work that you can see, and there are fewer people to worry about when you do get a bird up and you're waiting for that bird to get high enough to be able to shoot at safely. The bottom line, from a practical standpoint, is it'll depend every time, and you just better be prepared for any size group, especially if you're going to stay at a lodge like that. Now, if you're going to shop around and look for a lodge to go visit, or if you're just looking for wild bird country to go to, you have all the control over that. You invite 1 or 2 people and you keep it at that. And frankly, that's probably the best way to look at that. Take control for yourself. Are you thinking of going?
No, it's just that when I'm starting out doing this, and some of the mornings that we went out there, it was just like, elbow to elbow of orange people. Just like if something moved, they would just shoot at it. And we were like, nope, I don't feel like getting shot today. We would go to another area.
And you are the smartest guy in the room right now, Steve, because that's exactly the right thing to do. I don't care how well you know somebody, let alone some strangers who just piled out of the next truck over. I want to know that I'm safe and my dog is safe, and then everybody with me is safe. And you do not know that with all those other people. So I would do exactly what you did and go to the other side of that area and work from there and constantly keep an eye out for shots, people, patches of orange ghosting through the woods. No bird is worth getting shot over or shooting somebody over or shooting a dog.
I totally agree.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a sidebar to that one because I'm just reminded of this almost every other week these days. It's really funny. And I learned this from a big game hunter many, many years ago. If all those other people are on the west side of that area, and they're all, it's a mob storming the field, where do you think all those birds are going to go?
The opposite way.
That's where I'd start. Go to the east side and see what happens.
Good idea.
Well, we're making headway here, so I'm enjoying the heck out of this, Steve. You're doing great, by the way, and everybody else, you are too. If you want to get in on this, the easiest thing to do is send me a private message on Facebook. Either the page is Upland Nation or Wing Shooting USA. You're listening to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden. That's Steve Shurtleff from Rhode Island. You may be the only guy from Rhode Island that I've ever had a long conversation with. So. Carry on. Question number 3.
What is the best time of day to go shoot these birds?
Whenever you can.
Okay.
But and I don't mean to sound flip, but it's absolutely true. Sometimes you can get up at the crack of dawn. Sometimes it doesn't matter. Here's what I'm learning, and I'm learning this every time I go these days. There's very little reliability in the so-called experts, and most of them are smart enough to hedge their bets and not tell you, well, at 9 o'clock the birds will be feeding. By 11 they'll be loafing in the cover, and by 4 o'clock they'll be going to water, and so on and so forth. You do know a few things, but you don't know when they're going to happen. First thing in the morning after they move off the roost, they're going to feed. They've spent the whole night burning calories. They need to replenish their energy supply. But that could be crack of dawn, whatever time that is, where you are that day. Or it could be later in the day, especially if it's raining or it's cold or it's snowing. So get out, move a lot. Know that in the summertime, when there's some heat involved, most game birds, except pheasants, believe it or not, are going to go to water for a little bit. But what time of day that is, nobody knows. I do know that Ed Rollins, the quail expert that I go to for this kind of stuff, recommended that if you have a choice and you can only go for the morning or the afternoon, birds are porking up in the afternoon, getting ready for a long, cold night. So if you have one or the other, they'll be more active for a longer amount of time, most of the time, in the afternoons.
Very interesting.
So there's an answer and a non-answer. Go when you can.
Never a dull time there.
No, and that's the joy of it. Jose Ortega y Gasset years ago in his book Meditations on Hunting said something like, it's not the killing that defines it as hunting, but it's the prospect of killing something. So as long as you have high hopes, that's enough for me. Okay.
Very.
Are you taking notes, or are you just trying?
Yeah, actually, I am actually taking notes, and I'm like writing down all the other questions that I have.
I love it,
flowing through my brain.
Great. Well, I'm glad to help, and maybe it's my turn. Let me ask one of you now. So, what do you find? Because you've seen people hunt with dogs as well. And I'm not judging you, because everybody has their own reason for owning or not owning dogs. And I think if you're single and you're working as hard as you are, probably not a good idea. But what is the biggest challenge of hunting without a dog?
Covering the area that we do. Like I said, there's 3 of us. From what I've seen of dogs working, they go right to the bird. The bird, jumps up, boom, off to dinner you go. Where we're spending like 6 miles walking around in search of these delicatessens, that it's like, for us, it's more of like bonding and just talking about different stuff, plus actually, hunting. Whereas with the dog, I find it's more of like, hey, Joe, hey, Bob, oh, look, this bird, boom, okay, but we're actually enjoying it, I think, a little bit, I don't know, maybe more with a bonding and time than it is just, okay, gotta go, wife's expecting me, if that makes any sense to you.
No, and you're not alone. And number one, that we do that too, we dog owning guys, but we also talk a lot to each other about how wonderful our dogs are. And that, I'm thinking of Sunday, for example, we had 2 big running dogs out in this bowl of CRP was 1,000 yards across. And we were just standing there watching 2 dogs work that field extremely well. And actually, here's the lesson in this, because it's relevant to you and every other dogless hunter. And I've learned this many times, but I learned it once again Sunday. Those dogs weren't finding any birds way over there, but we were talking about how wonderful those dogs looked while we were just standing there. And then we were looking for feed to figure out what those birds were supposed to be eating right then and there in that area. I bent down and looked at the green shoots of cheatgrass that were finally coming up because we'd had some wet weather in the last few days. And as I looked down to point at those green shoots of cheatgrass, after us standing there for 4 or 5 minutes, I bent over, opened the gun first, of course, bent over, and that's when the covey of Hungarian partridge flew right from under our feet. They must have been 10 feet away, but they were hidden by the cover. Luckily, we both got our guns put together, and actually, I shot a double. So
Nice.
the lesson in that, yeah, it'll never happen again this season, but the lesson in all of that is, without a dog especially, birds may be closer than you think they are, and if you stop every once in a while, they're going to wonder whether you found them and are planning your mode of attack, or you're not. So they'll freak out, and when they freak out and they're close enough, they're going to fly, not run. So every once in a while, when you guys are walking around out there, just stop. Count to 10, count to 20. Sometimes a bird that's closer than you think will get up and you'll have a great shot.
Yeah, I find that we do as we're like going zigzagging through the fields, and then we do stop and we're looking around, and okay, we'll move more and more and more. That you're right, they do jump out of nowhere, and you're like, oh look, boom, okay, we got you.
Yeah, and you know the corollary to that is, like I said, we had two big running dogs on the ground all weekend, and so most of their points were over 300 yards away and uphill the whole way. So you know, sometimes dogs are helpful and sometimes they're not quite as helpful, but I still love them. All right. We're powering through this. This is the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden. That's Steve Shurtleff. I think we're on about question number 4, maybe. What do you got for me?
For somebody just beginning to do this, what is the preferred gear to start off with?
You don't need much. And I'm not a gun snob, and I've made that very clear over the years. But you want a shotgun that you have confidence in and that you know how to work blindfolded. I'll never forget, we were making a TV show out in, gosh, it was coal country. I think it was Kentucky. And the guy who was he was just a guest of the lodge, but he was such a nice guy. We brought him along on the show. But what I admired most about him was that he was shooting a semi-automatic, and he knew where everything was on it. You could just tell that he was so well acquainted with that gun that he could probably have taken it apart blindfolded, maybe like you had to do when you were serving. So have a gun that you have confidence in. Doesn't matter what kind. Yeah, you need a pair of boots, you need a pair of rugged pants and a shirt, and something to carry some water and some birds in if you are so lucky. Beyond that, I do recommend eye and ear protection, especially in the mob scenes that you might have to put up with. So some sort of a shooting glass and some sort of earplugs, whether they're electronic earplugs from ESP or anything else. Beyond that, I can't think of much else that you might need. It's a never-ending battle. There's always something you want, and we're always upgrading. But that's pretty much it.
Okay. Yeah, because I've been finding a lot of stuff on like Facebook Marketplace besides Cabela's and Bass Pro, and trying to just make it affordable to have fun. So,
well, I am going to make a shameless plug for my new venture, uplandnationdeals.com, where you can find all that stuff. And I'm going to be brokering it from one party to another. So check it out when you get a chance, and maybe there's something there, and maybe it'll be affordable, and maybe everybody else will do the same thing, and I can retire.
That's the goal.
Yeah, so I'm told. Yeah. So there. Okay, so let's do one more, and then I'll give you a little break, and I'll carry on trying to make some money. What else you got for me, Steve?
What do you look for in the lodges that you attend to go do these hunts?
I love that question because no one's ever asked me that before, but I think it would be a good magazine article too. So thanks. I'm going to steal that idea, Steve, and maybe somebody will buy it from me. What do you want out of a lodge? Let's talk about a lodge where you're going to stay overnight. So not your local hunting preserve per se. Most of this will pertain to both of them, but there are other things that that you might want to look for as well. Uh, I look for good recommendations. And these days you can find them all over the place, but generally word of mouth, talk to people who have been there before in one way, shape, or form. If they have an endorsement, that's not necessarily the be-all and the end-all, but if they're an Orvis-endorsed lodge, you can probably have confidence in them. I'm not just saying that that's the only thing that defines a great lodge, because I've been to 80 or 85 lodges, and most of them are not endorsed by Orvis or Beretta or anybody else, and they're still great lodges. What you want is great habitat. You want the experience when you're walking around out there to be high quality, beautiful habitat. You want pretty good dog work. You want a clean room. And for the most part, those are the things that most people find important to them. A good guide who understands your needs is right up there at the top as well. And price, they're all over the board. So find one that meets those other criteria, and then one that fits your budget, and you'll probably have a great time. Let me just say this about the cost of a lodge hunt. If you want to shoot some South Dakota pheasants and you live in Rhode Island, getting to South Dakota in itself is a big expense. And once you get there, if you're trying to freelance on public ground or something like that, you may or may not have some very good luck. If you do the math and you value your own time, everybody, then it might pencil out to spend some time at a lodge, whether it's wild birds or planted birds, and the choice is yours. They're all over the place, but at least think about that and do the arithmetic. It might work out best for you to take a serious look at a lodge hunting trip. Anything in particular about lodge visits you want to know, Steve?
No, because I just New Year's Day, I was watching pretty much a marathon of all your shows and the birds and all the places that you were, and I was just wondering what made you pick those. It was like one thing over another, or
yeah. Well, we look for the TV show. We look for beautiful habitat, like I said. Great dogs. Hopefully that shows once in a while. Every dog has its day. Hey, I know I didn't make that up, but but those are the things that are important to us, because what we're trying to do is show everybody else a good time. And that comes from, a lot of birds on the ground, a lot of birds in the air. And for the most part, that means we're going to go to lodges that will plant birds if we need them to. But beyond that, it's the same stuff you're looking for. And about every 5 years I do in this Upland Nation Index survey, I ask a few questions about what you want out of your lodge experience. And it's the stuff I mentioned. There are a few other things that are fun and would be really nice. Many of you want a private room and a private bathroom, and you want to be able to bring your dog into the room. I get all of those. So ask about them when you've narrowed down your search. And with that, Steve, you're going to get a break while I talk about a few things that are important to my sponsors. And congratulations, Drew Wederick. You're the latest winner in our Mossberg shotgun drawing. Speaking of the Upland Nation Index, that survey that I asked you all to take, Drew is the second winner of a Mossberg over and under Silver Reserve shotgun. I got one more to give away, so if you took the survey, however you responded, you're entered to win one more time that Mossberg shotgun. Thank you, everybody at Mossberg. The Upland Nation podcast is brought to you in part by Dr. Tim's Performance Dog Food. This time of year, performance is Is it ever not critical? Anyway, over the weekend, we hunted about 8 hours total, I think, and Flick did 47 miles. Yeah, you try that someday. Maybe your dog can do that. That'd be a good question, actually. But anyway, one of the reasons he can do that is he eats Dr. Tim's Performance Dog Food. I like the Momentum formulation. It's a little higher protein and fat. But the protein that's in there is important for many reasons. Let me just tell you one reason, and I tell you this because I want you to shop and look at your own dog food label as well. Different proteins do different things in your dog's body, from generating good coat to cartilage and tendons, muscles, metabolism, storing nutrients, and even producing hormones. So, different proteins do each of those things better than other proteins. Dr. Tim's contains a mix of protein types for that very reason. Chicken, fish, pork, eggs, and even oat groats. Yeah, there is room for grains of certain types in certain formulations of Dr. Tim's Performance Dog Food. Learn all about that and why I am so high on the product at drtims.com. Remember, you'll get 30% off your first order. Just use the code Upland Nation. All right. Let's see. So, and speaking of Upland Nation, yeah, one more quick reminder. You want the good stuff, but you don't want to pay good stuff prices? I can help you there now. UplandNationDeals.com. Yeah, like I said, the Poshmark for us guys. Pro-level gear at entry-level prices, lightly used, still guaranteed, and brand name. So you're buying with confidence. You're selling with confidence. I could use some inventory right now. There's been a lot of demand, so e-collars of all sorts are not sticking around very long. So if you have one you want to unload and get paid fast for it, drop me a note. Just go to UplandNationDeals.com. If you want to buy one, well, that's a good place to start as well. UplandNationDeals.com. All right, the Upland Nation podcast Handle It segment is brought to you by Happy Jack Dog Care Remedies for skin, coat, parasites, fleas, and ticks, and all sorts of other stuff. I'm particularly liking their pad coat. Use it every hunting day on Flick's pads and knock wood. We haven't had a single pad issue this season, and I'm a chucker hunter. All right. Now that's a ringing endorsement, a knocking endorsement. Anyway, Flick was trying to basically keep pace with a Toccoa Mountain Sunrise dog over the weekend, and he did a pretty good job. They logged about the same number of miles, worked like champs. You know, they just swathed that field, and it was incredibly fun to watch. But when your dog is at 600 yards, how are you going to communicate with that dog? Well, that's one reason I use a whistle. One reason I teach hand signals, mainly arm signals at that distance. But either of those may not work sometimes. So I've started using the tone button on my collar, and maybe you do too. Tone or beeper, either one, depends on what you want, what kind of collar you have. But I've been turning Flick. If he's going 400 yards east and I want him to go west instead, I will hit that little tone, and it makes a sound that he can hear very clearly. And he has learned in recent months that is just another way for me to ask him to make a 180 and come back and head in the other direction. It's like the aural version of the little bump from stimulation that our friend's brother Christopher and his guys at the Monks of New Skeet have been using lately. And I am doing that a lot too, and I'll talk to you more about it in the future because I'm liking it all. So consider assembling a repertoire of sounds and motions so that no matter how far away your dog is, you can still get the message across. And with that, Steve Shurtleff, wake up. It's your turn to ask more questions. Are you there?
I am here.
Okay, so I didn't put you to sleep talking about the monks of New Skeet and my dog and the most beautiful setter I've seen in a long time. And yes, out of that line, if you're a setter guy, you know what I mean. All right, so Steve, the
Yes,
dogless
sir.
hunter, tell
That's
me,
it.
tell me all about it. What's your next question for everybody?
My next question would be, how much ground do you cover at one time?
Well, you just heard the long version of that, and
Yeah.
it depends. It truly does, and I'm not being wishy-washy. There are times when I'll walk 3 miles in a day, and there are times when I'll walk. I think the longest walk I've had so far this season was 14 miles, and the dog will do about 3 for every one of mine, unless he's chasing a Tacoma Mountain Dog, and then he's doing 4 for every one of mine. But, mileage is relative to the cover, to the time of day, all those things that, would affect your, walk in the park, literally. What's more important is investigating, especially for a dogless hunter, investigating the likely hangouts for birds. And the only way you learn that stuff is by doing it. You can study all you want. You can, hey, watch all the TV shows you can and figure out, okay, why are those birds flying from over there? Is it because they had overhead cover, or was there feed, or what was it? I would cover all of those spots more than just marching around across a field, because even a planted bird is going to look for certain aspects of cover that will protect him from avian predators, ground-based predators, and then will get him to feed eventually, because even a planted bird that lives more than a day or two is going to get hungry.
I'm learning a lot today.
Hey, and the good news is you can listen to this over and over again. Just go to uplandnation.com.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we're on. I think we're on about 5 or 6, somewhere in there. We're doing great. And by the way, you're doing excellent. So keep up the good work. What's
And
Go ahead.
so my next question is, what are some of the best tactics to produce birds with and without dogs?
Well, I think the one that I like most without a dog would be what I'll call the walk and stop method that we talked about. I like that a lot, and as you learn more about how birds behave and where birds like to be, then you can do that near those good hiding places. If I was walking around without a dog, I would look at any low spots, creek bottoms, gullies, gulches, draws, that sort of thing. I'd look for pointy uppy things in flat cover. The some of the biologists will call them ecotones, but the edges where one kind of habitat meets another. So walk around in those places with or without a dog, and you'll probably do well. With a dog, your job changes a little bit, and you go from being one of the actors to being the director behind the camera, and your job is to kind of guide your dog into those kind of places. Part of it is having confidence in your dog. Part of it is training your dog to follow directions, and then hoping that you can find some of those kind of places and directing your dog into them. Now, I'm never going to say just hack your dog to that spot all the time because it looks birdie. Dogs have longer noses and hundreds of thousands of scent receptors in their nasal factory. So at some point, you got to trust the dog's nose more than anything else, including your birdie instincts. But that'd probably be my first suggestion.
Do you have a question for me?
Where are you going next?
The next hunt that I'm gonna do is probably gonna be, so the areas that we have here in Rhode Island is Arcadia, Big River, the Great Swamp, and then there's some more up in like northern Rhode Island as well. So I think the next one is going to be the Big River or Arcadia.
Nice. I think I'd avoid the big swamp. That just sounds like a Stephen King novel in the making. But good on you. And hey, let me tell you something. This happened last year. I was doing pretty much what you were doing. We have some. They're not close, but the closest one we have is a state wildlife refuge, primarily managed for waterfowl. But there's some upland hunting there, and you have to check in the morning, and sign your name and do all that. And so you go to the little check-in place, and last year there was a little family, mother, father, and a 10-year-old, I'll bet. And they were just curious about how that all worked, and so I invited them to come along with us and see how my dog worked and see what it was all about. And they were interested in hunting. They just had never tried it, and they didn't bring any guns, but they walked along with us, and we got some birds up, and everybody was happy, and it was a fun time. I'm not saying you go to that place and hang around in the parking lot and hope that somebody will take pity on you, but stranger things have happened. And if that person has a good dog, all of a sudden, hey, you're doing okay. And the other thing that you might want to do is start talking about that kind of stuff among your friends, and maybe even volunteer to help at one of the local dog training clubs, like your NAVDA chapter or a Shoot to Retrieve chapter or anything like that, breed club, something like that. That might get you into a hunt or two invitation, and then you can actually enjoy yourself with a hunting dog as well.
So I know from watching all the shows, there's been like hundreds of different types of dogs that go with you guys. What is the best breed of dog to go and do these hunts?
Oh, don't. Oh, okay. All right. That is a loaded question. The best breed of dog is the one you own at the moment, and it always will be. But it depends on what you're looking for, of course. And I'll answer it this way, Steve. If you are just getting into the bird dog game, there's a very clear delineation between flushers and pointers. And you know what I mean by both of those. Pointers run around, then they lock their feet and they stand there ideally until you get up there and the birds fly and you shoot them. Flushing dogs, they run around and they run around. When they find a bird, they crash in on that bird and try and get it to fly as soon as possible. The training commitment for a pointing dog is a little bit more complicated and a little bit longer in most cases than for a flushing dog. So if somebody's looking at trying the game for the first time and they want to start off with a bird dog, I'm almost always going to suggest a flushing dog. And then almost always I like a Labrador because there's so many good ones out there, and there's so many good hunting strains of Labradors out there. And if they wash out as a hunting dog, they're still great family dogs. So that's that. Everybody else is going to chime in and say, oh, of course, the Husky Fusek is the one. No, it's not. It's the Bohemian wire-haired point. Well, whatever it is, it's what you love the most. But if you're thinking about it from a possible consumer standpoint, try a flusher first.
Okay. Let's see. What are we on? Question number 9.
Wow.
What has been your most memorable hunt to date?
That's the standard response to that is ask me which child I like the most. Well, I can't even answer that one because I don't have any. But but they're all wonderful for various reasons. Half the time it's because of the dogs and the dog work. Half the time it's because of the people, and then the other half of the time it's the places we go. Sometimes it's a combination of all of those things. Flick's first point on a wild bird will always be etched indelibly in my mind. It was a valley quail, and it was on public ground, like most of the hunting I do, in a place that I only visit once a year because it's got sentimental value, because every one of my dogs has been there, and I've got the same picture with the same mountain in the background. Just so happened to work that way, and I'm glad for it. So, that's the one that sticks in my mind the most. But every day in every way, there's something out there, and that's the joy of hunting. And Steve, you're already learning this. Even as new as you are, it could be all of those things, or it could be the incredible dinner you have that night to celebrate, or the town you were in, and the people who let you have access to their place. It's all of that and more. How about you? So far in your brief dogless bird hunting career, what has been the epic moment for you?
So far, besides me getting my own bird, it was watching my friend's son shoot his bird with the help of the guy with the dog passing by. Just to be able to share that moment with my friend Liam and his son was priceless to me.
Man, I agree. What a great story. Go ahead. Tell me more about it.
So the first time that we went, my friend Liam and his son Trevor, we meet up at the Great Swamp, and we go in the fields and we start walking them. And like I said, he shot at a bird, but there was people coming the opposite way with a dog. So I was like, "Don't shoot." And then the guy with the dog was like, "Just aim your gun up, and the dog's gonna flush the bird." Sure enough, he did, and I watched his son shoot the bird. But just all three of us together on my first hunt with them made it special, that I could watch my friend enjoy it with his son, have that moment. It was great.
I bet it was. And how about the kid? How did he handle all that?
He handled it very, very well. He's 13, I think. But he's out with his dad, and he's learning how to do stuff, and he did it like a champ, like he's been doing it forever.
And he comes from a hunting family, so none of this stuff is really news to him. But to actually drop a bird on your own, that's got to be special. I hope you took some pictures.
I actually did. I took a picture of the guy who with the dog. He put the dog in front of us, so we all have a picture of the dog with the kid holding the bird, with my friend's son holding the bird. All three of us. So it's a great moment.
Oh yeah. That's spectacular. I mean, you have all the elements there: a young hunter, a dog, a helpful, friendly dog handler. Wow.
Yeah.
I can't think of a better scenario than all of that. You're listening to the Upland Nation podcast. That's Steve Shurtleff. He's asking the question. Well, most of them. I'm asking a few too. I'm Scott Linden, the host, and I'm having a great time. Steve, how you doing? Are you doing okay?
I am doing well, thank you.
Excellent. All right. So you'll give me a 5-star review at Apple Podcasts when we're done.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And everybody else, please do the same. All right. So you said 9. So does that mean we're on our last question here?
Unless you'd like to ask me a couple.
I will. You ask me one more, and then we'll go from there.
All right. Let's see. What do we have here? Where is your next hunt going to be?
I got to be careful, because it's you're going to learn this stuff, and everybody else knows it too. I'm a big proponent of sharing spots. I do a lot of that, and that's what findbirdhuntingspots.com is all about. But this is a piece of private ground with a friend who I originally made a friend with over Facebook, but that's, at some point we'll tell the whole story. We'll be in north central Oregon, running after chuckers. Speaking of setters, he's got a truck full, and Flick will try to keep up with them as well. So we'll be on the breaks of one of the many desert rivers around here, just over there to the left and then a little bit down the hill. Wish me luck.
Oh, I'm sure you're going to knock them out of the park.
We'll see. So, Steve, take stock of your hunting career so far. Here's my question for you. What are some of the things you want to work on between now and next season's opener?
This season was cut short due to having surgery. So I only had a month in, and then now that I've healed, I can go out and do it again. It's just learning more about the surroundings, about what to look for, like the patterns that we walk in the field, how to get more birds up, watching more shows, trying to learn more and take in more information while I'm doing it.
Yeah, those are all great. And yes, read some of the books, watch some of the shows. Don't believe everything those TV show hosts say. But there is so much out there. And the other thing, there somewhere near you is a group that you want to get involved with. Rhode Island might be one of the few states without a Pheasants Forever chapter, but there may be one nearby, or just join the national organization and get on the website and on their mailing list and check all of their blogs and everything like that. A lot of that information will come from there. And then, as you've probably discovered, there's a pile of stuff on YouTube. Some of it, again, I don't know that I would believe it all, but some of it is worthwhile. And especially when you're looking at a hunt and you're trying to figure out, well, why did that bird come from over there? Why was he in that spot? That kind of stuff. You look at it all with a bit of an inquiring mind. All of a sudden, you're gonna be a better hunter than most of the folks out there who've been doing it for years and years. Most of us, we don't do near as much analysis as we could. And you sound like the kind of guy who might just be able to take advantage of that. So tell me anything else you think is important for us to know, or for me to know, or anything else, Steve, for the good of the order.
If you ever want to come to Rhode Island, come on down. There's plenty of good fishing, both fresh and salt. Hunting, I'll have to get back to you on that, but I got 2 birds so far. I got plans to start learning how to turkey hunt as well, and we're just going to keep moving forward and enjoy this new world that I've kind of discovered.
Well, I'd love to have this conversation again in a year and see how much you've learned and how you learned it and that sort of thing. So I'll promise you to reach out. If you'll promise me to reach out, both of us will get connected, and we'll have lots of hunting stories to share. Steve Shurtleff, wonderful to talk with you. Welcome to the fraternity. Good luck for the rest of the season, and stay in touch.
I will definitely do so. Thank you for having me on tonight.
Thanks for being part of the Upland Nation podcast. And we've got lots more to talk about, including This Land is Your Land. That is the segment on public access, and I'm going to tell a personal story there. Steve, wonderful to talk with you. What a great attitude. You're welcome in my fields, in the fields I'm in anytime. All right. So, do you get the newsletter? It's called Upland Nation Insights. I probably ought to call it Weekend Essentials, because that's what the subject line says every week. And there he is now. So thank you again, Steve. Hopefully there's something in there every week for you, and including I'm glad to answer questions when you respond to that. Yes, I do see all of those. So if you reply, I'm going to read it. And if you ask a question, I'm going to answer it somewhere, somehow, someday. This week, I asked a question in our weekly survey, prompted by last week's trip. I always carry something in the back of the truck. Yeah, it's always in the back, and it's never opened until the hunt is over, the dogs are fed, and we are all relaxing in a safe and adult manner. For me, it's old and brown and from Scotland, but for other people, it's other things. So I thought that'd be fun. How do you toast the hunt, the dog work, the friends you're with, the places you've been, all the good things that happened? It doesn't always take an adult beverage, but if it does, what is your poison? Interesting results. And I'm going to start using that. That's good. That's perfectly twice on the beat. Beer, number one, 32.5% of you like that the most. Second on the list, bourbon. 30% of you like that. All right, then from there on down, it just whittles itself. A cocktail or a mixed drink is about 10% of you. Scotch, my favorite, about 10% of us. Wine, about 8%. Tequila, Olay, about 5% of you. And then vodka, about 3.5% of you. I'll revisit this, and we'll ask about the soft drink question down the road, but I'm fascinated by this kind of stuff, and someday we'll just all get together to celebrate in whatever manner we can. Can't wait to be back at it and being able to talk with all of you on a regular basis in person somewhere in bird country. All right, just about ready for This Land Is Your Land, but first, the Upland Nation podcast is sponsored by Gunner.com. Gunner kennels have been tested and proven to save actual dogs in actual accidents. Don't believe me? Look at the pictures. And remember, free shipping, lots of new products. Sign up for their mailing list and you'll get early access on exclusive offers. All sorts of things out there, including a whole bunch of accessories and some Gunner gear that you can wear. It's all at Gunner.com. Yeah, Gunner.com. This Land Is Your Land is brought to you by FindBirdHuntingSpots.com. Every week I help you find places to hunt, train, and care for your dog. FindBirdHuntingSpots.com. All right, so we were out in that country over there and to the right and a little bit further east than that, over that mountain range, and looking for a couple spots that were designated as public access, privately owned, welcome to hunt. Found them. Couldn't find any way into them. You know, there's a little ground here, a little margin there. There's a creek that's a little bit too deep for all of us. We're searching everywhere, trying to get access to this piece of public access. Ironic, isn't it? So we look at the map again, and I suggest that we drive that way and then cross that bridge over the creek, and there's a little tiny corner that may, based on how badly the map was drawn, may touch the road, and we might be able to get in over there. We cross the bridge. At the next wide spot, there's a pickup truck with a guy standing next to it. I admit it, I'm still a Boy Scout. I pull over to make sure everything's okay. He's got a ghillie suit on and a coyote call, and he's just packing up from a day of that. So I said, oh, you know, everything okay? Yeah, everything's okay. What are you guys doing? Well, we're going to try and go to, you know, this spot right here. He says, oh, it doesn't meet up. You can't go there. But what are you going to do? I said, well, we're just bird hunting, see my dog, meet my friend, meet his dog, blah, blah. He says, well, I don't normally tell people this, but the best access to that spot is the other side of my farmyard. Follow me over. And it went, well, if being bad is going downhill, this went uphill the whole way, and it was literal and figurative. That's where we were in that 1,000-yard bowl and the Hungarian partridge that got up when I was admiring the cheatgrass shoots, all because We stopped and made sure someone else was okay. Consider that. I think I did a video on how being nice might pay off, and in another case it did, and I talked about that on the video. But you just never know. You don't, and you won't unless you try it. Be nice, help out, and see what happens. That's This Land Is Your Land. I know I didn't tell you where to go, but and maybe after that story you'll tell me where to go. But anyway, it never hurts to be helpful. Thanks to ESPAmerica.com for co-sponsoring the show. Electronic earplugs, custom fitted, many price ranges, ESPAmerica.com. ESP stands for Electronic Shooters Protection. Well, I enjoyed another session of our 10 questions. Thank you again, everybody who's listening. Thank you again to our guest, Steve Shurtleff, and good luck. Welcome to the crowd. I hope to talk with you again in a year and see how you're doing. If you like the podcast, please tell your friends and leave me a review. I really would like a rating from Apple Podcasts from you. Do me that favor. Next time you're going in there, it's pretty simple. Talk to me at the Wing Shooting USA and the Upland Nation Facebook pages. You can listen to all the episodes at uplandnation.com. Speaking of ratings, thank you Windwatcher0175 and BZ Uplands on the Wing. Appreciate your 5-star reviews. Leave you with this quote from an unknown author. Let me try that again. One reason a dog can be such a comfort when you're feeling blue is that he doesn't try to find out why. I'm Scott Linden. This is the Upland Nation podcast. Thank you so much again. Hope to see you in the field someday. In the meanwhile, take a newcomer hunting.